yesterday, and he was talking about he feels like, he went back to a story about Mark Stoops, and he could tell that Mark Stoops thought his team was really good. And I think it was Eli Drinkowitz he was talking about this year.
Yep.
But I don't think you could ever get that feel from Hugh Freeze. I agree with you. And I think this team is going to be better. Their schedule is really difficult. They go 6-7 last year, which was a disaster. If you had a over 6.5 ticket for the Auburn Tigers last year, and you lose New Mexico State at home, and then a 4th and 31.
I know. That one will stick with him a long time. I mean, he's told us that on this show. I'll tell you what I think about Hugh Freeze. I think he probably knows they've got a pretty forgiving start to the season. Like, he's got an opportunity to get a team off to a good start this year. Now, what happens after that, I don't know. But anytime you've got a team that might have some question marks, building confidence early is never a bad thing for any team.
Right. Yeah, they opened 5-0.
Yeah.
They 5 straight games at Jordan-Hare to start this thing. If they were 5-0, this team might believe they're a lot better than they are.
Yeah, and so then you never know when you get Oklahoma. If you're playing well, you get that win over Oklahoma. Now it starts to snowball a little bit when you get into the really, really difficult part of your schedule. That it still includes Georgia and Alabama and all those tough games they're going to play. They've got a chance to get a good confident start and have some confidence. And I think that obviously everybody that follows Auburn knows that's key most for Peyton Thorne. I mean, that's the guy that through 5 games, if Peyton Thorne is still struggling a little bit at quarterback, you're super worried. Through 5 games, if Peyton Thorne looks like, trying to think of a year or two. Well, I hate to say this. I really
Don't say Joe Burrow.
Well, I was going to say Joe.
Braves country to another episode of the Pennant Grace. We are happy to have you, and we have a lot to get to today. First things first, my name is Emily Grace McWhorter. This is Ush Sisk, and we're going to have a fun day today.
We are. A lot to talk about. Since we were together in person. Welcome home, by the way.
Thank you. I was out in Dallas. Before we get ahead of ourselves, who are we presented by?
Presented by Roback. It's perfect because you saw a lot of Roback when you were in Dallas.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of Roback just being here in the studio today. It's running wild.
It is. I'm in Roback today.
In the studio. So Roback, you get that at roback.com, and you use code PG20 at checkout, and it's going to save you 20%.
It's a good deal.
It's a great deal.
So the Braves. We talk about the Braves on this show.
Speaking of deals.
There's a lot to talk about, and we have a lot to get to. So we're going to try and be as organized as possible as we go through this. But we could get a little off script.
Yeah.
We'll see. I guess the obvious is there's some injury bug. Still.
Yeah, you do get the feeling of being snake bit. Every team deals with injuries, and so the Braves are not alone in that. I do feel like, as Atlanta Braves fans, you probably feel a little snake bit this season. So
For sure.
you think of some foundational pieces of the franchise. So obviously Spencer Strider, obviously Ronald Acuna, but now Max Fried and Ozzie Albies. And so that is not, in addition to some of the other that have come and gone, and some that are still there. Michael Harris has not come back yet. Ian Anderson just in the news recently because he's in Gwinnett. So you forget, Ian's been out all this time. Lots of injuries, but these are some really big ones, obviously coming at a crucial time post All-Star break, and so it's a lot to take in, and it does change things for Atlanta, and we'll talk about that later on.
We will. PG postscript is, do the Braves need a starting pitcher before the deadline?
Yeah.
Keep in mind what your answer is going to be. We're going to talk about it at the end of the show. I think we're going to have some interesting conversation for a few reasons. One, we may be changing our tune on this simply because of yesterday.
Yeah.
Don't want to get too far into it, but do the Braves need a starting pitcher? Let's just start from a game series recap with the Cardinals.
Yeah, so coming back from the All-Star break, you get the St. Louis Cardinals. You're at home, and it's a rejuvenated type feeling for the fan base as well as the players, because the All-Star break is done. We're in the second half. You're ready. You had that little break. Now you're itching for some baseball. You're ready to get back.
Exactly.
And, obviously did not go the way that the Braves expected, and it was a bit of a frustrating series. And I feel like those two teams are pretty close together, but I feel like the Braves just lost a series to an inferior team.
I have to agree with you on that. And I'm not one to say, who is the best, who's the worst. We're obviously not playing these games. However, I do think that the Braves are just a better team than the Cardinals. And in a series like this, you want to gain ground. And unfortunately, what happened is they actually gained a game on us in the wild card spot.
Yeah, so if you look at wild card standings, the Braves are still in first place there. So it goes Braves, Cardinals, Mets. So that's the top three. And then behind them, you have two Western teams, the Diamondbacks and the Padres, and they're pretty close behind as well. So those are pretty close together. But as you said, Cardinals gaining a game there on the Braves in the wild card. Braves remain 8.5 games back on the Phillies, of course. The Phillies are identical to the Braves, though, going back before the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Last 10 games, they're both 5-5 in their last 10. So thankfully, Philadelphia is not, stepping
Continuing
on the
their
throat
hot streak
of Atlanta right now, coming off San Diego and now St. Louis.
I would have liked to have seen more continuity. I obviously would have liked to have not seen those injuries that took place Sunday, but it just feels like this offense still is not reliable. That's my big takeaway.
I agree, because you're seeing now big innings and big games from the offense, but you're not able to string that along into any type of streak.
And I don't know what the answer is. I'm not going to pretend like I do, but it's interesting to watch because, for example, Matt Olson, I was expecting big things from him coming out of the All-Star break. Is it coming down to mechanics of his swing? I don't know. If it is, why has it not been addressed yet?
I don't know either. But I agree with you. The biggest problem has been able to establish an offensive rhythm.
Yeah.
So if someone asks you, what is the major problem with your Atlanta Braves? They say, oh, you're a Braves fan. People usually don't bring it up to you unless your team is struggling. And then they'll say,
seriously.
oh, what's wrong with your Braves? If I had to sum it up in one thing, I would say a failure to establish an offensive rhythm.
I agree. I like that. A failure to establish an offensive rhythm. I think that's what it comes down to. We continually talk about how this is a game of momentum and rhythm.
Yeah. And there were some good things that happened,
right.
obviously.
Eddie Rosario, too.
Right. That was good to see, really good to see. Even in not his best start and giving up way more runs that were needed. And Spencer Schwellingbach, you did see a lot of good things in that start, too. He is continuing to impress me in other ways, even though That that's coming off his best start to his game before that, but still saw some good things there. There were some good things. It wasn't a doom and gloom, but obviously you want to first series out of the break. You want to be able to take that series to try to establish some momentum.
One thing about the special, as we call him, Spencer Schwellenbach, to me it feels like as a club a lot of being asked of him already, and I feel like with Max Fried, this injury, it feels like that pressure is going to mount on him. And that does make me a little nervous.
Without question, yeah. I don't think there's any question about that.
No.
Without Max Fried, you reevaluate everything at that point.
Yeah. Let's talk about Fried. So he went out with injury to his forearm. And if you're a Braves fan, you guys know last season he missed most of 2023 with a forearm injury. Now, this is left forearm neuritis, so it is nerve damage essentially. And the MRI says there's no structural damage. That is a huge win if you're looking for that, a huge positive.
It is.
But I do think there is some element of downplaying to how significant this could be.
Yeah. So a lot of people, I think, when they talk about our show, they probably don't pay enough attention to how strong we are on the medical side. Yeah. So I want to get into some of this on the left forearm neuritis.
Neuritis.
This is from our friends at Battery Power.
Okay.
A deep aching running down the back of the forearm, sometimes to the wrist, and is usually accompanied by aggravation when trying to lift or grip something.
Two things very important if you're a pitcher.
Those are essential. I don't know how well you're going to do pitching without trying to lift or grip. But to your point is, when you first saw this, and then when you came back, and Brian Snitker was quick to say,
whoa.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
We're going to have, so as it stands now, we'll have Max Fried back this season.
Yes. One thing, though, I want your opinion on.
Okay.
So he pitched in the All-Star game.
Yes.
I've seen reports that he said there was some discomfort ahead of that start. Do you think that he should have sat himself, or do you think that it would have happened either way?
I think it was. So I thought about that.
Okay.
And I think it would have happened either way because I have a feeling that it had its origins before that. And so I think it's inevitable anyway. And so I don't place blame on him for that.
Well, one thing too, at this point in the season, you guys know, pitchers are beat up. Everyone is somewhat beat up, and you're looking for that all-star break rejuvenation to kind of settle things back in. So again, I've heard a lot of people on social media blaming Fried, saying, if you felt that, think of the team, sit yourself, there's enough pitchers there. I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, it's not like he went out in the All-Star game and pitched 7 innings.
Right. Right.
So.
I don't think you can really draw the argument there that he should have sat himself. And I do see both sides. Of course, if you have an injury, you need to do what's best for the team. But I agree with you. I think it would have been inevitable. And I think that it was lingering, whether he wanted to acknowledge it or not. But here we are, 15 days on the IL.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah, and Goose says, I hate to be the doomer fan, but this season just hasn't felt great from the start. There are just holes and weaknesses that show up, and then the injuries on top of that.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with Goose at all on that. I can't believe I'm saying there's holes. Coming into the season, I certainly didn't see any.
No.
Did you?
No. And why would we have? However, I do look back and I think about last October. And to me, and I've said this before, I think it started then. I don't think that it was at the start of the season. I think this goes back a little deeper, whether we want to acknowledge that or not.
That's a great point.
But I'm going to go back to playoffs last season. This has been brewing for a while, and it never was solved then. And you come into this season, World Series or bust, but the issues never got solved.
Right.
Might be a hot take.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't know.
Hot takes here.
Yeah,
medical
hot
talk,
takes.
hot takes.
Whatever
a little
you
bit
want.
Everything. Yeah.
Let's move into the next injury. I feel like we're also becoming just like an injury show. Maybe we should get our medical license so we can discuss this little.
Wear scrubs.
Yeah.
I like it.
I actually do have, funny enough, I do have a pair of scrubs at my apartment right now.
How about that?
From Dr. B, our friend. Because
like
I
it.
shadowed him for an entire day of surgery. Story for another time. But with that being said, Ozzie Albies. Oh, this one feels different. This one hurts, because we continually talk about how important Ozzie is for the culture of this team, and we've referred to him as a glue guy of sorts. Broken left wrist, minimum 8 weeks.
Yeah, so, we're not going to have Ozzie back this season, and he's a huge part of the team. And
Is that confirmed?
That's me.
You okay?
Another hot take here. 8 weeks though is going to put you where?
8 weeks from now, that'll put us in end of September.
Yeah. So
that's true.
but assuming he comes back completely on time, I just don't think. I think you have to operate at least from a standpoint that you can't count on him coming back, whether he does or not. And so that says 8 weeks minimum. So to me, you're not having Ozzie Albies back this season. I'm pretty confident in that.
Ugh.
And so now you have a situation at hand because Ozzie Albies plays a pretty pivotal role there in the infield. And so what will you do there? And obviously the Braves are already addressing that need. But he's also my mother's favorite player. That should have been the headline there. Your mother's favorite player out with an injury should have been the headline. I love Ozzie Albies. He's one of my all-time favorite Braves. And we've talked about this on the show numerous times that Ozzie has been pretty consistent. When you compare him to his teammates.
Yeah.
And the streaks that we've seen there, he's been
consistent.
Here.
Yeah. And I will say, if it's a bright spot at all, he does have little paw prints all over his cast. I thought that was a nice touch if you can find one.
The Pennant Grace loves dogs. We're on
do.
the record for that. We're sponsored by a company whose logo is a dog.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good to see the puppies on the cast.
I don't know. I just hate it for him. And Keith brings up Matt Olson again. Olson's struggles have baffled me. He has been so disappointing this year. And Keith, we touched on it at the beginning of the show. I agree with you. I don't really know what's up. And I brought up the point, maybe it's a mechanical issue with his swing, which, again, why has it not been addressed yet? I don't know. It is just very interesting to see. There's just no continuity. And I keep using that word, but I think that's the only way to describe it. No one is on the same page, it feels like.
Right.
And I'm not going to pretend that I know what the answers are, but at a certain point, we're getting into August.
Yeah.
And we have had these same conversations since April.
Yes.
April. We've also been doing this show for a very long time.
Yes.
That's a bright spot.
Isn't it, though? See, everyone, there's always sunshine and smiles.
Let's get into some sunshine and smiles. We have been mentioning the name Nacho Alvarez for about a month now, would you say?
Yes.
He is here.
It's nacho time.
Nacho time. I wonder what promotions they're going to do for him.
Nacho time is here. It's there. If he plays well, look out. There's going to be more nachos coming out of your ears if he plays well. So what the Braves will do, because there was some talk in this that I saw just amongst fans about, okay, so will they move? So Nacho's a shortstop. They'll move Arcia at second and Nacho at short. And Mark Bowman was like, Arcia's an elite defensive shortstop.
Yeah.
You're not going to move him from that.
No.
And Nacho's played some second base. You're going to have him at second.
I agree. He mainly plays shortstop and third base. It doesn't intimidate me to have him at second base just because I don't think that we can get any lower than we are now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like the expectations, like if he does well in that spot, awesome. Amazing.
Vaughn Grissom was able to come in and do it.
Yeah,
and I think
that's a great point.
I think Nacho Alvarez will be able to come in and do it. And Nacho is playing well in Gwinnett.
He is. He still is. That was a big question for him is with his move to Gwinnett, can he keep the momentum going? And as of Sunday, he is batting .342 with 7 home runs.
Yeah. So, again, my hesitancy on that was sample size being so small.
Yeah.
Let's wait and see on this. But this is how baseball works, and sometimes plans change and injuries necessitate change, and that's what we have here.
I'm hoping, one, obviously defensively, I hope that he is lights out in that position. But really, I'm hoping and praying that his bat can continue. I think we're going to see some drop-off, if you will, as he adjusts. I think that's only natural. But think about this. If he can fill that hole defensively and add that offensive power that we need, that could be enough.
I agree.
I don't want to say it'll be only enough. I think some moves need to be made. But I do think that could be huge, and it's in our own system.
Yeah, this changes nothing about the Braves' need for an outfield bat. No. That is still just as much of a need had none of these things happened. So just keeping that in there.
I agree. The next sunshine and rainbow smile, potentially, Whit Merrifield.
Whit.
Good old Whit.
Old Whit. You know anybody named Whit?
No, actually, yeah, I do.
Do you?
I do. Mm-hmm.
That's sounds like a very established type
Whit.
name.
I like it.
I believe Whit handled the Susan Ross Foundation, which George found himself having to work on in Seinfeld. So, friend of the show and our Phillies correspondent, just as Reed Taylor is our Dodgers correspondent. Yep. We have a Phillies correspondent, friend of the show, Travis Millsaps. So I reached out to Trav to tell me about Whit Merrifield coming from Philadelphia. Now, Whit Merrifield, of course, played the vast majority of his career in Kansas City, had a brief stop in Toronto, and then in Philadelphia. He played very well, all-star guy, and really struggled this season. So what's up with that? So here's what Travis says. Merrifield's issue with Philly was not playing every day, from all that was said. He did not adjust to being a part-time player. The infield/outfield utility situation just doesn't work, or didn't work for him. And then when a similar utility infield guy and Edmundo Sosa got hot, Sosa took over the infield role, and that just left Merrifield playing against the lefties in left field. So his at-bats kept going down. So that's something to keep in mind there. Okay. They had another guy they were wanting to bring up, but Travis mentions, hey, he's a 3-time All-Star, including as recently as 2023. Because he played very well in Toronto, too, the season, I think a season and a half he played there. But clicks for him, he could have a big impact. His upside in reality is probably hitting 275 with occasional power. You give the Atlanta Braves 275 with occasional power, and Emily Grace and I are doing backflips in the studio, by the way.
Yes, we are.
But he mentioned solid defense at second base, third base, and left field. And he's played some first base in the past as well. So he says, hey, didn't work with the Phillies, but it could just be that thing where he gets a change of scenery and you see him do well in the Braves. I really love this move because it's basically a no-risk move. It's not like there's a major investment here. Yep. You're getting him on a flyer. Why not give him a try? A guy that's had that success, a veteran guy, I think he's 35. Veteran. Why not give him that try?
Well, and I think the key thing there is veteran. Now with Ozzie out, you're losing some of that maturity. I won't say maturity, but that elder presence. Yeah. I think with him coming in, and what do the Braves do best? They put a guy in a Braves uniform that has some potential, and suddenly they're doing incredible.
Right.
We see that time in and time out. One thing I do want to tell you is I saw this on Twitter today, X. Someone that works at Truist took a picture of the new building that was built over home plate. And word on the street was that AA was in there as early as 7:30 this morning, and they've been having meetings.
Wow.
So that's encouraging, too. I do think that we need to keep in mind that leadership-wise, the Braves are so sound.
Yes.
That's a great thing. But I don't take all of these moves and whatever happens in the next 12 days as the Braves throwing in the towel for the season. And I don't really think that anyone should be making those claims that, like, okay, let's just throw it away. We're still 10 games over 500.
Right.
And think about all the injuries that the Braves have.
The Braves aren't a great team. The Braves also are not a terrible team.
No.
The Braves are, I believe, and you believe, a team that's going to make the playoffs.
Yes.
And we see what happens once we get in the playoffs. It's a different deal as you start heading into the playoffs in terms of momentum. Do I see the Braves as an elite team? Absolutely not. I don't think that anyone could objectively say that. But I also don't see the Braves as something that's just right this season off. It's done.
And I think one thing, too, and I'm not saying this to anyone in particular, no one hates this more than the players themselves.
Right.
Let's just call a spade a spade.
Right.
We can sit here and talk about, it's been frustrating, it's been this, it's been that. We're not actually playing the game. No one cares about the team more than the players. No one is more frustrated than the players. No one is more invested than the players. Because I've seen some people, getting frustrated that d'Arnaud threw that ball to Ozzie. Why did he do that? That hasn't worked for him yet. The risk is, too high for the reward. It trickled out to center field. Travis d'Arnaud is a veteran catcher who has done incredible things for this club. And the people that are claiming that d'Arnaud messed up is more than likely sitting on your couch in your home watching the game. You turn off that game, you go about your day.
Right.
It's frustrating at times to see fans get in this mindset of these players need to be perfect. I know better, even though I'm sitting on my couch watching these games.
Well, it's even worse with a bad start. The Braves had the best ERA in baseball at the All-Star break, and you'd never know it.
No.
From the online response from fans, you would think that Braves must not be doing very well pitching this year. The way that was treated. And a guy will go out and have numerous great starts, have a bad start, and then a certain segment of the audience will be, what the heck is going on with this guy? People are going to make mistakes. People are going to have bad starts. They're going to blow a lead. They're going to blow a save, whatever has happened. But we know that you have a guy called up now who's going to be making his debut. In Nacho, you've got a guy in Merrifield who is the epitome of a veteran.
Yep.
So you have two new pieces that you're adding in. You still have a relatively new piece, new-ish, as he's returned at Eddie Rosario. No one sees any of these, by the way, as these massive game-changing type moves, but we see what happens with them. We see where we go with them, knowing that the Braves will be active at the trade deadline.
Yes.
And I do think that they're going to put some money towards a bat, and I'm shocked if it doesn't happen.
I agree. I think let's move into PG postscript, because I think some conversations are now changing because of Fried's injury. And there also some discussion of free agency with him now too. What does this do? Another injury to the forearm. I still think, even with Fried's injury, that a bat is the priority.
I absolutely think the bat's a priority, but I also think that they will get a pitcher. Now, I just don't know what price range are they going to be getting that pitcher at. So you mentioned Dylan Dodd's getting called up, and so we haven't seen Dylan Dodd in a Braves uniform since last year, and he's been in Gwinnett. 17 games, 4.91 ERA. We'll see.
We'll see.
What we get there, young guy, Braves guy, we want to see him do well, but I think you have to bring in somebody at this point.
Well, and I think it rides on, do you trust who you've got now? Do you trust Chris Sale to stay healthy? That's a huge piece. Do you trust that the special can continue to produce at such a young age with even more pressure? Ronaldo Lopez, do you trust those guys? I think now with Fried and this injury, for insurance purposes, you have to consider a starting pitcher now.
Yeah, I think if you're Chris Sale and Ronaldo Lopez, you've got to have that feeling of we can't lose games.
No.
Like you and I can't ever lose.
No.
We have to win every start we have. And that's not, realistic, honestly. And so you're going to have Charlie Morton, or you're going to have to have Dylan Dodd or the special come in and have some big moments there and have some big wins.
Now, what would help the most? The offense responding.
Absolutely. And that all of a sudden takes so much pressure off.
Exactly. And I think we go back to just the discussion on the Braves pitching. They have overperformed with a really underwhelming offense and have still done what they've needed to do.
Yeah.
The offense has given them no help in the slightest, and they're still doing what is expected of them. But I do think with Fried out, that's going to add even more pressure.
So I kept saying no, they're not going to get another arm. No. Obviously, the Fried injury changes that, and I think both of us would be pretty surprised. And it's going to happen. They're going to get somebody.
It has to happen.
As far as a starting pitcher. But we got baseball tonight.
Yeah, and tomorrow, early game tomorrow, or excuse me, on Wednesday. It's like an 11:30 a.m.
I believe that's
game.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah. So Cincinnati Reds. So another NL Central team. They are in last place in the Central. We've talked about how competitive that division is, but they're 47-53, exact same as the Brave in their last 10. They're 5-5, but they've lost 4 in a row coming into this. So they're slumping and struggling a little bit as they come into this. No other way to word this other than this is a series that the Braves need to win.
Yeah.
Because then you go to Flushing and that's a big one,
right?
Taking on the Mets and Flushing with them playing as well as they've been playing.
I think this is, and I don't often say a must win, but I feel like this is almost a must sweep.
Yeah,
truthfully.
Yeah, at least get that series.
Well, and in a weird way, I do think with Nacho coming up, this could be a great series to get his feet wet.
Yeah.
Same with Dylan Dodd, and with Whit.
You're at home.
You're
taking on a team that is slightly subpar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that this could be a good spot. It's going to be interesting, and we said that we would be seeing a different team after the All-Star break.
Yeah.
I didn't think it would be roster-wise so different. I almost feel like we landmined that in a sense.
Now starting at second base for the Braves, Emily Grace McWhorter.
Can you guys imagine? Oh my gosh.
Could be happening.
Could be. You never know. But with all of that to say, I do think the expectations should still be high for the Braves.
Yeah, I do still feel like it's, even with these two blows, and they're big blows, I'm not undercutting that at all. I still feel like the Braves are a playoff team.
Yeah, I agree. I just saw here the Reds do lead in MLB steals.
I like it. Well, yeah.
That
does not surprise me.
No, it does not. So tonight's game will be at 6:20. Tomorrow at 6:20 as well. And then Wednesday it'll be 11:20.
Love it.
So early game, but just a lot. It's a lot to unpack. You might need to go rewind this episode just to make sure that we got it all in, because a lot of changes have happened since we last chatted a week ago, where I was in Dallas and you were here. But a lot to still look forward to.
Yeah, and so we'll get together on Thursday. We'll be able to recap that entire Red series.
Yes.
We'll be able to put a lot of time looking towards that Met series. It's a big one, and I think it'll have a lot of attention on it, so we'll spend a lot of time on that. And who knows what can transpire between now and Thursday that we'll have to talk about.
Right. Hopefully we will report back to you guys with great news, and I don't want to jinx anything, but I have a good feeling about it.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm not eating my words come Thursday at 12:15.
Both of us are glass half full people. We are optimists.
We are.
Yeah.
And I apologize if you guys aren't in the mood for the optimism for the Braves. But unfortunately, or fortunately, that's what you're going to get here. It takes a lot for us to get down in the dumps on the Braves.
It does.
No PG panic button still.
No panic button.
I don't know what has to happen for that to happen.
Something would make it happen. Yeah.
All right. You guys know where to find us. We'll be back here 12:15 on Thursday. Follow us on social media at the Pennant Grace on X, on Facebook, on Instagram. We love to hear from you guys. There's a really good group of you guys that are always super active, and we really appreciate that. Always be in the chat room. We love to hear from you guys, but give us your overall grade on how you feel after this episode.
I like it.
Let us know what you're feeling now that Freed and Ozzie are out. But we love doing this. We love you guys, and we love Roback.
Yes, we do. We also love saving money.
We do.
We like that Roback lets us do that. When we go to roback.com, we make our purchase. That purchase is going to have probably a quarter zip. It's definitely going to have one of those hoodies in it.
Definitely a pullover.
Going to have a polo, maybe a hat. But you're going to type in PG20 at checkout, and you're going to save 20% on your order. You can't beat that.
It's incredible. We will see you back here, Braves Country, at 12:15 for another episode of The Pennant Grace.